Thakur ki jai. So, welcome to another of the Vaishnav Acharya series lectures, where today will be hopefully very exciting. As always, a wonderful start to all of our Ekadashi, but first, Om Ajnanatirmirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shiva Sadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. So today's Ekadashi is quite special, commemorating a few things, but first and foremost, we have Radha Govinda Julen Yatra. So it's impossible to have a lecture on a day like Radha Govinda Julen Yatra and not speak a little bit about Radha Govinda and the devotees who had dedicated their lives to the lotus feet of Shri Radha Govinda. But first, what is Julen Yatra? Why is Julen Yatra important? For us Vaishnavas, Julen Yatra, no matter where you are in the world, the weather conditions are changing in some way or other. But for Krishna, in the divine spiritual realm of Sri Vrindavan Dham, those seasons are even personified. The weather now has a personality and also would like to serve. So we'll often see that the clouds have their desire to serve their friend Krishna because he looks like them. So he must be one of them. We see that the flowers and all of the creepers, they begin to sprout just to give joy to Sri Krishna. So the weather also acts accordingly. And for the weather in India, this is the rainy season. This is also known as Shravan Mas, this first month of the 4-month-long rainy season. Where I was just talking with a friend, and I was kind of classifying it as summer because summer is where I am. And they were also thinking about summer. Like, yeah, no, it's summer. It's still summer in India, except for India, according to scientific things, it has 2 seasons, wet, dry. That's it. So this rainy season, this wet season, the air is thick and heavy. And if you've ever been someplace nice and tropical where the humidity is at 100%, you get a nice feel of how oppressively hot it can feel. Humidity makes all the difference. So the air is heavy now with all of this moisture. It's raining and flooding. So there's kind of water everywhere. And you want to offer Krishna the most opulent things. Well, in the rainy season, with the heat and the humidity and the rain and the opulence is a cooling breeze. It's described as its own opulence. Like, that's the opulence of the season. Just if you can find one cooling breeze. So if the inhabitants of Vrindavan, the Brajbasis, if they can't find a breeze, they'll make one. And so at this time, Shri Radha Krishna fashioned swings that hang from many of the trees. And then they're pushed on these swings, which gives them the opulence of a cooling breeze during the rainy season. Sometimes they have little misters where they'll put rose water or scented water, and then they'll mist them lightly. But most of the time, the last thing you want is more water. Sometimes you just want less water and a nice breeze. So they are swung on a beautiful swing. Not only that, but this is a very special time because culturally, many girls would go back home to their parents' houses. They would visit their parents from their in-laws. And Radharani also would visit her parents from her in-laws' house. Luckily, her parents' house was much closer to Krishna's house than her in-laws' house was. So now she could freely come and go. No one to question her. No one to give her any kind of side eye. And she was able to meet Krishna more freely than before. However, during Shravan Mas, she keeps looking and looking, and one day and she's looking and she feels as though her family has forgotten her. Finally, back in Barsana, Kirtida Devi and Vrishabhanu Raj send Sridham to go get Radharani. Finally, when Radharani sees Sridham, she says, "What took you so long? Has everyone forgotten me? You've forgotten me? Mother and father have also forgotten me? There's only a few days left in this month." And so Sridham begins to take Radharani to Barsana. But her mother-in-law poses a problem. And Jatila comes, she says, no. This girl can't go. There's too much work to be done. And besides, usually she gets lazy with her work. She leaves it halfway through. She doesn't finish it. There's so much, look at all the things that have to be done around here. She can't go. Now, Radharani is casting looks at Sridham. What will he do? Their mother sent him prepared. She had packed lots and lots of gifts for Jatila in the house. So Sridham begins to unpack all of these voluminous gifts of all different kinds. And Jatila takes a look at them and she says, "Fine, she can go, but only for a few days. Then bring her back." Also, she had her concerns about a certain cowherd boy who was rumored to be associating with Srimati Radharani. But with all of those obstacles crossed, Radharani makes her way back to her parents' house. So this is kind of a joyous time for us if we think about it as devotees, always hoping for the reunion of Shri Radha and Govinda. So Radharani, she reaches her parents' home. She's able to now meet Krishna, and now they have a swing festival. And it's said that this swing festival, Krishna likes it very much. For one reason and one reason alone. He calls Radharani, "Oh, princess, please come sit on this beautiful swing. Look at all of the work that your Sakis have put into this swing." Radharani graciously, she comes and she sits down on the swing. Krishna personally begins to swing her. And so he pushes the swing. And within a matter of time, Krishna happens to push the swing higher and higher and higher. Until finally, Radharani is so put off by the height and the vigorous swinging motion of the swing that she finally calls out, "Oh, Krishna, save me." Krishna, being the intelligent, quick-thinking hero that he is, he quickly leaps onto the swing, sits down beside Srimati Radharani, who throws her arms around his neck and says, "Save me." And this is why this is Krishna's favorite season. Usually, he says, I have to do so much work to get the same result, which is easily obtained during the Julen Yatra festival. There, he can find himself embraced by the goddess of fortune, not through any fault of his own, but through her own accord. So this is the importance of Radha Govinda Julen Yatra. But what does it mean for us? This lecture is entitled Personalizing Our Service. When else do we all become pujaris? Regardless of how much time we've been here or not. This is now the time that we have to personally relish and participate firsthand in the intimate pastimes of Radha Krishna. Usually the pujari stands on the altar on behalf of everyone else and offers an amazing arti, but now the lords of our heart have stepped off the altar and come straight to us. And all we have to do, we purify our hand, we get flower petals, and then we offer up our most cherished prayers. Once a year, 5 days. Now we might think we call in Kartik. Then we also get to offer a special arti. But somehow arti is formal, feels a little bit more removed. But if you go and you swing someone on a swing, you know them at least a little bit better than nothing at all, hopefully. And to now have the divine couple finally reuniting with one another after all of the seasons of outsmarting their elders and making all kinds of tricks and taking all kinds of disguises, now they're free to enjoy, which is what has become a most wonderful ISKCON painting. That picture of Radha Krishna on a swing, where it seems like everything else in the world fades away, and it's just them. Now we get to be a part of that service. Each and every single one of us. Whether we do it in our homes, whether we do it in a temple, whether we do it together, whether we do it alone, we get to become the soul pujaris within that garden kunja of our hearts. Krishna is more than happy to remove all of the barriers between levels of devotees or between levels of requirement or achievement, right? Over and above all that is rightfully ours, according to our own path on the process of bhakti. Now, requirements are not taken into consideration anymore. Anyone, come. So much so that it's been brought all over the world. So it's a great fortune that we have to be able to personalize our service this way. Sometimes I think about it and I think it's nothing short of a miracle. If we really, really consider our positions, Srila Prabhupada has assured that there were demigods waiting to take part in this Sankirtan movement. In these pastimes right now, just imagine if we could actually see how many living entities show up for each arti. How many incredible living entities show up for each Julen Yatra festival. Usually we make a big show, at least of the formality of calling all of these personalities. But what if we were actually seeing them? Each Gora Arti, what if they were all manifesting right there before us? I think it would impress upon me the importance of Archana, the importance of deity worship, the importance of being there for every single moment of every arti. Not sometimes what happens is when I was younger, my mom was really strict about us being there for arti. She said, you have to go for arti because most auspicious. And she would say, at least stay until they've offered the flower to the deities. Her thinking was, that's like 75% all the way through an arti, but also you get all the benefits. So it is a limb of devotional service just to smell the incense offered to the deity. What to speak of gaining all of the blessings, all of the wonderful spiritual potency from the ghee lamp that's been offered to the deities, from all of the water that's been offered to the deities. Now you get to smell the flower that's been offered to the deities. So she was going to make sure that we got as much benefit as humanly possible. If by chance we decided that there was something more important to be done at that moment. And I remember thinking when I was younger, okay, she wants me to stay at least until after the flower. And I'd kind of be waiting until I could do, I don't even remember what it was that I wanted. But if every arti, when we turned around, we actually saw all of the living entities that run to these places for these specific moments. So personalizing my service has a lot to do with looking at the lives of these acharyas and looking at these wonderful pastimes, and then reminding myself that if I learn anything from a pandemic, hopefully, it will be not to take those moments so for granted. Those moments that I thought, there'll be a million of these. Those moments when you think, there'll be a million conch shells that I'll hear. What's one or two? I want to be more involved in the present moment, no matter what that present moment is. And if that present moment is taking shelter of the deities and really taking darshan of the deities, I want to imbibe those moments more, so that I really take in the spirit of what is supposed to be happening. A glimpse into divinity, a glimpse into the divine spiritual atmosphere. One that, sure, I think I've said to anybody's like, do you want to see a spiritual world? Yes. So if I've been asking and hankering for this thing, now that I have this glimpse and right, the Supreme Lord has the opportunity to glance back at me. If I learn anything from this pandemic and all of the gifts that is actually brought in disguise, I also want to learn to be more involved in the present moment. Not so much by muscle memory. Artis would come and go, muscle memory. Do I even remember them? So speaking of devotees who were so wonderfully living in the present moments of their lives, recently there was a day commemorating Raghunath Thakur and Vamsidas Babaji. Raghunath Thakur we spoke about before, so I'll just briefly. Raghunath Thakur was a little boy who was put in charge of their Gopal deity for the day. His father said, make sure the deity eats. The little boy said, okay. The mother made the offering. The little boy took the offering plate into the deity and said, okay, eat. Gopal did nothing. He said, you have to eat. And this little boy began to completely freak out. You have to eat. Finally, the deity said, I eat with my eyes. He said, no, my father said you have to eat. So you have to eat the whole thing, not with your eyes, with your mouth. I don't know if a deity does that. He's like, deities also don't talk. So the deity had to eat everything. And he did, more than once. Finally, the parents came because they're bewildered. What happened to all of this prasad, this maha? Even if one little boy were to eat it, it's too much. Raghunath proudly told his parents, you told me to make sure the deity eats, and so he ate. Everything's gone, no problem. They asked him, please do it again. He does. And some say they catch the deity red-handed and he only eats half laddu. The other reason they say he only eats half the laddu is because he says, I'm full, you just fed me. So you have to eat again, my parents said. Talk about living in the present moment and personalizing your service. His service was so personal that each time he had to go feed Krishna, he really, really fed Krishna. Imagine if each time we offered our homemade food, prasad, we set out a plate and we knew our friend was going to come and eat. Sometimes I do it, but have I backed it up? There's so many blessings just for listening to a story with faith and devotion, hearing a certain story with faith or devotion. It's the faith and the devotion. It gives tons and tons and tons of spiritual prosperity. Imagine if I were to do my service with faith and devotion. Sometimes the idea starts off with the faith and devotion. And then halfway through, the muscle memory kicks in. I go back to my previous thinking of, okay, I'm just going through the motions, doing the same thing that I've done several times before. Now, I know it's not as simple as muscle memory, because if I were to explain it to anyone, it's like, what are you doing? Well, there are these wonderful, sweet, doll-looking deities that I worship, and they're really cute, and I cook for them. You cook for them, and they eat. It's a thing. So, I mean, if it's gonna sound outlandish, if it's gonna sound crazy, why not be fully immersed in it? Like, why only do it halfway? So I speak as much to myself when I think about these pastimes. Yeah, my service should be more personal. I should be asking my deities, no, eat the things. But did you really try it? Like, I see no crumbs. Like, what's happening? To be able to have such a personal relationship with Krishna that we spoke about before, as we move towards him, he reciprocates faster than even our mind can conceive of. Where I am doing my devotional service with so much devotion that my Krishna answers me back. It's possible. Even more than possible, it's highly probable. Srila Prabhupada gave us the promise. He said, Krishna is waiting to talk to you. Now, you just make yourself fit to hear him. I'm on the wrong frequency. I'm like tuning the dial on the radio just so to get it maybe a couple of degrees this way or that way, so that I can try and get on the proper frequency. Speaking of people with different frequencies, the other Vaishnav on that day was Vamsidas Babaji. He's a favorite. He becomes a Vaishnav that you do not forget once you hear of. I heard of him a few years ago. True to form, I didn't forget. He was a contemporary around the time of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. So this is not so long ago. Usually we hear of our Vaishnavacharyas. The vast majority of them have been about 500 years ago. So now we're close. So this Vamsidas Babaji, he comes from a place within modern day Bangladesh, which so many Vaishnavacharyas come from the areas within Bangladesh, which is amazing. So this Vamsidas Babaji was very, 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 very immersed in the pastimes of Radha Krishna. So much so that some say that his parents were able to get him to enter into family life for a short time. Some say that it was only one day, but the general consensus is it was very quick. He essentially kind of like runs away from home at a certain point. And complete avadut, which, is a fancy word for like spiritual, transcendental, eccentric person. We speak about Nityananda Prabhu. He's an avadut considered. And he would often do things that were difficult for anyone else to understand. Sometimes Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu included. So like, the sayings like only God knows what they're thinking. No, really. And sometimes not even God. So Nityananda Prabhu would do so many things that no one would understand. This is an avadut. And I think I have also sometimes romanticized the full extent of the word avadut, transcendental madmen. In my head, I see like really cool Nityananda journeying through I think that looks different for other Vaishnavas. And with Vamsidas Babaji, it was very different. He didn't cut his hair a lot. There's a picture online, and he actually looks quite wild, right? You look at it, you're like, wow, that's wild. It's like, yes, that's the definition of avadut. That's how that translates. He would often not enjoy visitors, so much so that sometimes Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur would send brahmacharis to sometimes give him food. And sometimes he would accept it. Sometimes he would yell at them. Sometimes he would throw rocks. You never knew which one you were going to get on any given day. It was said that he didn't speak much to anyone, but he did speak a lot, but only to his deities. Said sometimes he would speak to his deities for hours. And then at some points there would be a break in the conversation as though he were listening. And then he would continue. Sometimes he would speak lovingly to them. Sometimes he would speak angrily. Sometimes he would chastise them. And then sometimes he would beg and plead with them. But he didn't speak to anyone else much at all. He was content to just speak to his deities. His deities? Who were they, do you ask? He had a Bal Gopal deity, a deity of little baby Krishna. He had Gaurnitai deities, who he often called the boys. And then he had deities of Radha Krishna, who many sources say were named Radha Govinda. So this is how we bring it back into Radha Govinda Julen Yatra. So Vamsidas Babaji would personalize his service to such an extent that his deities were his life and soul. Really, truly, I mean that. So he would never lock his house. He got a little place to live. It had a door. He never locked it. People would say, why don't you lock your house? I said, I left the keys with the boys. If they can't take care of their house, what am I going to do? So with the boys, meaning he left the keys with the deities, and then he went out. I said, if God can't protect his house or doesn't want to protect his house, how can I protect his house? Really embodying the full mood of complete surrender to Krishna. It said he would depend on Krishna alone. And again, I mean that. So once he came, and a gold chain was stolen from one of the deities. First, he got angry. And because he doesn't talk to anybody else other than the deities, who else is there to get angry with but the deities? He'd say, how could you let this happen? You just allow anything. I leave, I come back, you're not in the same condition I left you in. What am I going to do with you? But then he got some understanding about who must have stolen this necklace. He goes to get the necklace back. And that person, they have an argument on the veranda, right? The outside kind of like balcony porch of their house. They have an argument out on the veranda, and this person pushes him off the veranda. He falls down the stairs, hurts himself. He's an old man. He goes hobbling back to his deities. He says, what do I do? I tried to do something nice for you. You don't want it. The person who had pushed him, eventually they return the necklace. But also that person eventually like loses a leg. And then slowly but surely they lose their entire family. It was a big mess. It was really bad. So yeah, Vamsidas Babaji was completely protected. But he also completely relied on his deities for everything. He would cook for his deities. Sometimes it would be in the morning, but sometimes this cooking would go late into the night. He was so personal with his service that he would inspect each grain of rice. And if he found some rice with a husk on it, he would personally take the husk off with his fingers and then continue on to the next grain so that he could eventually cook for his deities. Someone came to criticize him one time. They said, hey, Baba, it would be better if you cooked like this for your deities in the morning. He said, morning, evening, I don't have any concept of time. I'm just cooking for them. He said, and by the way, he says, do you think that I'm their home servant, their father's servant, to be able to know when to cook for them, what to cook for them? He said, I'm an old man. I can't do all that. He says, really, to be quite honest, right? I wouldn't even need to cook for all of them. Along with his Gaur-Nitai deities, he had Gadadhar. He says, Gadadhar can cook for Gora, no problem. He says, Nitai is an avadut. He has no caste considerations, no religious considerations. He'll eat wherever, no problem. Even Bal Gopal, I don't actually have to cook for him. There's one cow that comes every day. She'll give him milk. But this Radha Govinda, see, I worry about them. If I don't cook for them, then they'll leave. They'll walk all the way to Vrindavan and perform Madhukari, begging. He says, so now what to do? I have to cook for them. They're the ones I worry about the most. So in this way, he would lovingly always be wrapped up in the pastimes of his Radha Govinda and Shri Shri Radha Krishna. Once they said he came back and there were brass bowls that he had been feeding Gaur-Nitai with. Someone had stolen the bowls. He said, every time, I leave you boys, I come back and you can't keep track of any of your things. There was a time when Mahaprabhu was getting robbed regularly. He said, this Nimai, he's so merciful towards Bengali people. He just gives away all of his things all the time. He says, usually, but Nita, you don't give me any trouble. But now, both of you, you've lost your bowls. No problem. No bowls, no food. He punished the boys for the theft. I guess that's what comes with being in charge of having the responsibility of your own place. He said, no bowls, no food. But he cooked food still for everybody else, but not them. And then it said that Nitai's bowl returned. He said, Nitai, you see? He doesn't give me any trouble. No problem. I'll feed you. And then he only fed Nitai. It said that the deity of Mahaprabhu began to make very, very sad faces watching Nityananda eat all of his meal. Vamsidas Babaji said, I would have fed you. You didn't bring back your bowl. Besides, don't you know I'm too old for this? You boys, you keep running me around every day, all day. I can't do this anymore. And then he began to cry. He says, who says I want to punish you? This, of course, hurts me more than it hurts you, as every good parent has ever said. He says, but what to do? I have to act like this. You boys are so naughty that I don't know what else to do. Finally, Gora's bowl returned. And then he fed both boys. But somehow, this is our Lord, eager to have the roles reversed, eager to have all of the majesty and the opulence totally torn down. No, just be my friend. Don't worry. Come, you can feed me. You can speak to me. You can hug me. You can chastise me. No problem. In fact, I find that even sweeter. We can swing him. We can rock him. We can sing to him. This is God, the absolute truth. But when we personalize our service, even the Maha Mantra, one of my favorite definitions of Maha Mantra, Srila Prabhupada said, sometimes it just means, oh, my friend. This is my absolute truth. That over and above all of the things that I can't even understand or conceive of, I have one calling card, which should let you know how old I am because nobody uses those anymore. But before, you needed a calling card. And I have the best one available. At any given time, all I have to do is with faith and devotion call out, oh, my friend. The devotion makes the difference. It adds the sugar. But if I just once get to call out, oh, my friend, and my friend says yes, life is successful. Vamsidas Babaji Maharaj, his Lord was saying yes every day, especially if he wanted to eat. One day, this Vamsidas Babaji was, according to him, minding his own business. And then there was a woman selling fish. Somewhere in his mind, he said, let me go buy that fish. Then halfway to, he realized, why am I doing this? What kind of strange desire is this? I couldn't have this desire. Then he turned and talked to his friend. This is all your fault, he would tell his deities. I took shelter of you. Now you're giving me all kinds of strange requests. What is this? You're trying to ruin my devotion. Meanwhile, I'm completely reliant on you. I'll show you. He went into his bhajan kutir and began to yell, storming back and forth, yelling at the deities. He picked up his two deities of Radha Krishna, Radha Govinda. He took them outside. He tied them with a rope on one end and then tossed them in the Ganga. But he held his foot on the other end so as not to lose them. The devotees were aghast. Baba, what are you doing? No. If they don't act so naughty, then I don't have to do this. He punished God. This is an avadut. Also one that you don't forget once hearing, because how many others? What I really enjoy about Vaishnavacharyas is that no two Vaishnavas have the same devotional path. So if you ever feel as though your devotional story doesn't look the same as somebody else's, I don't think it's supposed to. What I love is there's Countless devotees within Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, within Sri Chaitanya Bhagavat. So many of them. Everyone has a different story. A different way the Lord has saved them, a different way that the Lord has created miracles in their lives. Vamsidas Babaji is one of a kind. I could not have even fathomed these activities before I had read them. And then I kind of had to read them again. Like, what did he just do? He threw the deities in the Ganga, but he doesn't want to lose them forever. So he kept one end of the rope. So it really was just a punishment. But this is what happens when you decide that you really, truly, with devotion to back it up, I rely on you, Krishna. That's it. I think I told this story once before. Govinda Maharaj, he was stuck between airports, customs issues. And he had his Gopal Ju deity with him. And he was confined to a hotel room. He brought out his Gopal Ju deity. But outside, there were officials, all kinds of things. It wasn't really a great situation. The devotee with him said, "Oh, Maharaj, you're going to bring out Gopal? What?" Govinda Maharaj said, "He got us into this mess. He should get us out of it. If I have to stay here, he has to stay here." So this kind of absolute and full dependence on Krishna is so unique. To be able to really, truly, fully say and believe it. Because, I say it every day. I believe in Krishna. I have faith in Krishna. I love Govinda. But then I'm still, on the side, like, well, I have to make my own plans and agendas because who knows what Krishna could be up to. But I'm supposed to have faith. Right? I was the one that said, I'm depending on him, no problem. Until push comes to shove, and then I shove back because I should be in control of things. Spoiler alert, I'm not. I'm not in control. But Vamsidas Babaji, he gave up all control. At all times, he lived at the whims of his deities. And really, truly, he believed it. Because he was content with only them for companions. Eventually, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj told the brahmacharis to stop going to see him. And then he says, you may have thought that I've told you to stop going to see him because you think he's in Maya, or you think I think he's in Maya. But really, I've stopped because you can't understand his bhava. You can't understand his feelings, his emotion, his devotion towards Krishna. Different level. So Vamsidas Babaji is very famous for being such an avadut. Also now kind of famous for punishing his deities. But I can truly say that is a love like no other. Family. Really like family. But just as the inhabitants of Braj would always say, but if Krishna doesn't trouble us, if Krishna doesn't put us through all of these tests, our days don't feel complete. If Krishna doesn't come and steal milk and butter from the cows don't give milk and butter. Why? If Krishna doesn't come and make me chase all of my cows around the house just to try and get them tied back up after he's untied them, my cows sit around all day and they just call out. They won't do anything. No one can do anything. So even though they complain to his mother again and again, they also don't really want her to do anything. It just gives them an excuse just to speak about the glories of Shri Krishna. So in our lives, I often do think Krishna has a sense of humor, but he's the only one laughing we say in my family. He often does things in our lives, moves us like little chess pieces, and then I feel like he stands back. He's like, ah. And meanwhile, we're in all kinds of uncomfortable positions, and we're grumbling and moaning and sometimes yelling and crying. But if he didn't trouble us, what would our lives even be? Where would I be? How would I even be able to cope with a big world like this without my Govinda? As many times as I've said, that Govinda, only one laughing. He's not funny. He thinks he's funny, but he's not funny. But if I didn't have that, how would I cope? What would I do? No matter what happens with our lives, nothing is up to chance then. And so sometimes I've said, if you feel like you are trying so hard just to do your seva and it's not working out, sometimes you have to go to the friend. I asked you for seva, but now look what I have. Look what's happening to me. If we learn anything from our Vaishnavacharyas, it's that equal measure. We have to give that love in equal measure. So yes, we have to tell the Lord, you are the Lord of my life. Lord of everything I hold dear. But also maybe sometimes we have to tell him, hey, what's happening? Sometimes he likes to be called with familiarity. And familiarity doesn't even always have to be about which name we've chosen to use. It's about the intention. The inside mood. Srila Rupa Goswami writes about an argument that's had between Krishna and Rukmini. And Rukmini winds up at one point exasperated, totally at her wit's end, because our Lord is a master with argument. So totally at her wit's end. Finally, she calls him Krishna. But this for Rukmini is a little bit new. She's usually very demure, graceful, quiet, shy, grave, modest, and always proper. But now she's angry. And finally comes the sweetest of sounds. It's that sigh, that Krishna. Oh. Now Krishna thinks. Unfortunately, Rukmini quickly recovers who she is. Well, unfortunately for Krishna, who was hoping for more of the argument. This is our Lord. This is our Lord. Also in my family, we say you have to know Krishna is going to like drama and bring drama to your life. It's the same Krishna who was born in a jail. Not at noon, not at a nice sunny time when there was adequate light, in the middle of a rainstorm like hurricane at midnight. This is the person who is time. Could have chosen any other time. Middle of the night. Incredible rainstorm. So we have to know that this is the same Lord that we call upon. And he gives mercy, but also has a sense of humor. He's going to trouble the best of us. But if he's troubling us, I feel like we're on the right path. Like, I feel like we're on the right track then. Because this is what he does to all the people that he loves. Sri Chaitanya Bhagavat, Lord Nityananda says to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, says, I think that you have the greatest habit of troubling your very own people. It's the Lord speaking to the Lord. But that's how we have to know that it's absolutely true. Like if our Lord has not made trouble in our lives, then are we really that close? Right? This is the thing that your friend would do. Somebody who knows you intimately. Because my Guru Maharaj would say, it's Krishna doesn't trouble you so that you're like, oh, that was fine. That wasn't trouble. He's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He's going to know exactly the buttons to push. And then he's going to keep pushing them. So it's not trouble unless it's trouble. So my Guru Maharaj would say that when Krishna and Balaram were troubling their mothers, they would find new ways and different ways every day. So just as Radharani would never cook the same thing twice, Krishna would never trouble his mother in the same way twice, right? Lest she get used to that form and be able to ignore him. She's just trying to do whatever she's doing for you. But this is our Lord with a personality. How often do we hear about that? I've heard in some traditions, they'll say, my God is a vengeful God, which often is for the enemies of the people or for the wrongdoers. My God is a mischievous God. Of course, that's not all he is, but this is what he has chosen to be most. Mischievous, causing trouble in the lives of devotees and non-devotees alike. And I put that in quotes because he makes sure that no one is a non-devotee. But then, of course, if you'd like to become an atheist, then Krishna gives you the remembrance and the knowledge and the forgetfulness to be able to do that. But then he messes with your life in other ways. I'm time. Did you just make up the rules to this whole game? At any moment, even if you want to forget, okay, fine. You know what? This God with a form has given me too many problems. Take the form back. Now formless. But then he's going to mess with us in other ways. And somebody's going to come and say, well, the universe. Like, you can never really get away. But would I want it any other way? That's the Krishna that I need. If we talk about personalizing our service, that's the God that I need. I need the God that's going to never, ever, ever let me forget him. Because I'm going to try really hard. Why? I don't know. When we look around honestly and we think about the world objectively, none of it really makes sense. No one likes each other at all. And no one likes anything else. Right? We're a whole bunch of people who don't like anything. Not other people, not plants, not other animals. Collectively, we wind up not liking things best. So when I really look at it, I don't know why I try so hard to forget Krishna in a place that doesn't make any sense. And the reason it doesn't make any sense is because Krishna has set it up that way. You'd like to go? No problem. But you're going to want to come back. Because the place where we get to be in control, we're not in control at all. So in terms of personalizing our service, we can't imitate the eccentrics like Vamsidas Babaji. But he had given up on trying to make this place make sense. He went the other route. What would happen if we really gave ourselves over to our devotional service? He gave himself over to devotional service, mind, body, soul. And more often than not, he was too busy to worry about the external world. He was just too busy engaged in devotional service to worry about who was there, who wasn't there, who was speaking about him or who wasn't. He had done something that is just phenomenal. To say, I put my faith in Krishna. Krishna said, just surrender unto me, no worries. Now I'm going to take him up on the offer. I keep pretending like I might. Any day now, it's coming. I'm going to do it. Oh, this is the day, maybe tomorrow, that I surrender. But one day, I keep loudly boasting that I'll do it. Vamsidas Babaji needed no words. He needed no introduction. If, like I said, now that you've heard about him, whenever you hear the name again, is it possible to forget him? No. Starved Gornitai gave his Radha Govinda deities new water pastimes. But he was so fierce with his devotion. He would speak to his deities for hours. When I call out my japa, am I really saying, oh, my friend, or am I going to just like mumbling it? Oh, my friend, oh gosh, help. Because do I really want him to answer? Am I actually making myself ready for that? Am I still just going through the motions? One last devotee who I feel like we have to talk about briefly, I'll wrap up, is Raghunath Goswami. Oftentimes when I was younger, I would get him confused with Raghunath Das Goswami, which is understandable because they have similar names. And when you're singing it in song, you know, it goes really fast, right? Like you go Shri Rup, Shri Sanatan, Bhatta Raghunath, like it goes really fast. And then, you know, there's two Raghunath, but what? So Raghunath Bhatta Goswami, he was famous for not writing anything. What I really, really love is he didn't write anything. But when you search up Radha Govinda within Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, which we can do thanks to this wonderful Veda base, his name is found alongside them. Usually in the context of Raghunath Bhatta Goswami found shelter at the lotus feet of Sri Govinda Dev. And then those lotus feet became his very life and soul. Dedicated his life to the deities of Sri Sri Radha Govinda. And he even had a disciple who built a temple for them, which you can hear in Indradyumna Maharaj's lectures on the hidden pastimes of Govindaji that he's been giving, which we should all, if you have nothing else to do this Ekadashi, even if you have something else to do this Ekadashi, it's kind of a good idea to procrastinate with those lectures. Best thing ever. And it really gives a legitimate reason to your procrastination, right? It's like, I'm doing something important. So if you are thinking about procrastinating, or if you find yourself with free time, please, it's definitely so worth it, especially on a beautiful Ekadashi. Like Radha Govinda Julen Yatra Ekadashi. Like this Ekadashi is beautiful just to listen to those pastimes. But Raghunath Goswami wrote nothing, but he sang really well. He would sing, and they would say that he would sing Srimad Bhagavatam verses 3 or 4 different tunes. Which, when I read that, I was like, the envy I feel, it's transcendental, like, you know, like, oh. But it's like when you first realize how amazing Amarendra Prabhu is. When there's a verse that you've heard so many times during your life and then he sings it, and I think, what have I been doing with my life? So when I was thinking about all of the devotees flocking to hear Srimad Bhagavatam from Raghunath Bhatta, I could understand. There are, how amazing is this? Contemporaries of mine that are embodying this very principle right before my eyes. That I feel is a miracle. So it was said that he would sing really well. He would give lectures beautifully. And he cooked really well. And we learned kirtan from pretty much all of the cooks at Radha Govinda Mandir. So we always had a running joke. It's like it's always the cooks and the kirtaniyas, like hand in hand. And then I learned cooking from the same cook kirtaniyas. So we were cooking and doing kirtan. So when I read about Raghunath Goswami, I thought, it's true. Somehow or other, cooks and kirtan, it goes hand in hand. And I often find that I'll try and keep these pastimes handy, because I feel like anytime you're going to do anything, we can call upon these great devotees. So if you're going to give a lecture and you're feeling unsure, ask. Oh, Raghunath Goswami, I know you're the best at doing these. Help. If I know one thing, it's that devotees are always ready and willing to help other devotees, especially the Goswamis. They made a song about it. So in that song, it said that they're a friend to everyone, always willing, ready to help. So it has to be true. It's in the song. So we can ask these different Vaishnavas for their assistance. If you have something that you have to write and you're unsure about it, call out to Rupa and Sanatana Goswami. You both can help. If you so desire, then this can be something pleasing to Krishna and the devotees. We have to remember to use our resources, especially if we're going to personalize our service. So this is Raghunath Goswami, who would tell the stories of Srimad Bhagavatam in such a way that the devotees would be plunged into ecstasy for hours. And still, no end. They don't even want any end in sight. And these are the devotees that have dedicated their lives to Radha Govinda, which I thought fitting, as it is their festival in these nice rainy season days. Even in New York, it's a little rainy seasony. It's hot and humid and sticky and muggy and will thunderstorm at any moment. But it makes us feel like, at least here, the ambiance is perfect for this festival that now will begin. So I hope that not only do we personalize our service, but we really immerse ourselves in it. If you have the opportunity over these next 5 days, swing Krishna. Watch a video even. Manasa seva, seva in the mind still counts. So even if you have to watch a video and in your mind go to that place, no problem. Still has the same spiritual potency. But if you can, really join in these rare pastimes. There are gopis everywhere, devas and demigods everywhere, queuing up, long, long lines just to be able to do this service. And thanks to Srila Prabhupada and all of the Vaishnavacharyas, we have that unparalleled opportunity, never before seen. Krishna doesn't care about your level of advancement now. He's running to all of us, just waiting to see if we will push him back on the swing. Be a small part of the story. Maybe if we're lucky, one day we will throw ourselves into this service so much that everything else will melt away. And all we'll be able to see is a very, very mischievous Govinda trying to make sure that he pushes his princess higher and higher on the swing until finally she says the words he's been waiting to hear most, "Oh, Krishna, save me." And one day, when we ask Krishna why he's causing so much trouble in our lives, we'll be able to hear him back on the strength of Srila Prabhupada's promise that Krishna is ready to talk with us. We just have to make ourselves ready to hear him. Thank you so much. Thank you for making every one of my Ekadashis. Thank you for being here. If there are any questions, comments, please feel free. No, everybody good? Thank you all so much. I hope to see you all again soon. I just want to make sure I'm not cutting everybody off. No, we good? Okay, good. Oh, there's a question. Yeah, I think everybody else is good. You can go.
Hare Krishna and Tita Gopi, thank you again for the class. So I had a question about the first pastime I think you shared today about, Krishna swinging Radharani on the swing. And then you said there's, he purposely does it. He swings her higher and higher. And then she shouts out like, Krishna, help me or save me. And then Krishna jumps on the swing and she throws her arms, around him. And then he's very happy because she freely, she freely does so. So I was meditating upon that and wondering, like, do you think like in our own lives, Krishna also sometimes, creates, a situation and kind of pushes us to that point where we also just feel like, we want to call out and say like, okay, now just save me. And I'm wondering, like, is Krishna like for every soul, wanting that moment, like, like standing and waiting for that moment where we, where we choose, to be saved by Krishna?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of mind-blowing when we think about it. Every single living entity, every single one, no exception, has a Paramatma. And we've spoken before, that Paramatma, that Krishna's only job, because, he gets to pick and choose. His only job is to have a relationship with us, with that jiva. So yeah, in that regard, Krishna's always eagerly waiting. It is said so many times that Krishna, he loves us more than we can even imagine, more than we could ever even return. But as every single boy thought, Krishna's only having lunch with me. And as every single queen thought, Krishna's only staying with me. I feel really bad for the others. As every single devotee thought, Mahaprabhu is dancing and he's only looking at me. Krishna has this ability to make it so that we all think, oh, Krishna was just waiting to save me. Eager to have this relationship with me. Eager to hear my special brand of, oh, Krishna, help. So do I think that sometimes he puts us in certain circumstances? Sure, absolutely. Now, some might think, but some of those situations are quite uncomfortable. Like, well, why? And I heard a really, really great analogy. Again, Amarendra Prabhu. He was saying, sometimes there are things that karmically are coming. Now, of the things that we know are eternal in this world, karma is not one of them. Right? So Bhagavad Gita speaks about several things. Few of them are eternal. Karma, not so much. So, but there are some things that are going to happen in some way, shape, or form. But then we add in the Krishna factor. Right? So it's like if you fell sick and you had to go to the doctor. The doctor said, you have two paths in front of you. We could do a 6-month regimen of these vitamins and things. Sure, it'll probably clear it up, but it'll take a while. And then you're going to have to recuperate after the 6 months so that the whole thing, it's going to be at least 1.5 years. And he says, or we could do surgery. The surgery will take about 2 hours. The recuperation time will be another 6 months after that, but it's going to be a little intense. But 2 hours versus a 6-month regimen and slow thing, out 1.5 years. Some of us might choose the 2-hour surgery. Right? Long analogy. All to say that sometimes there's some karma that's already coming. And then sometimes Krishna says, it's going to be a little intense, but let's expedite. Right? Everybody loves expedited shipping. Gets there really fast. 2 days. So sometimes it's said that that's the track that the devotees are on. We're on the expedited shipping track, which actually does help, but sometimes can be a little intense. But it would be near impossible without Krishna. So sometimes when I think, oh, Krishna, this is a situation and this is really uncomfortable and I feel like you put me in this situation and now I'm not happy. What I also try and think is, so then the way you're going to get me out of this situation is going to be amazing, right? And he's never, ever let me down. Ever. No matter what I've thought I had planned or whatever I thought was going to be a great idea, his idea was always better. Even if the pathway to it looked a little bit weird and bumpy and felt really intense. So yeah, I do think that sometimes he speeds along the process. Yeah, get rid of the karma. Just come home. Sometimes there are some things that he says, well, I can't really break that rule of the universe yet. So there are some things that we have to go through. But he does move the process along, which is ultimately a good thing, but doesn't always feel so great. But such is the case with medicine. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. There's one more thing that I'd like to ask if you've got time. I'm just curious, because you were mentioning that one of the reasons you like the Vaishnavacharyas is that each one of their devotional paths is completely different. And then you said sometimes, and I've definitely felt that way many times in my life, we look at another devotee's path and we think what's wrong with my path? Why is it not looking like that? Also, it doesn't always look that linear necessarily. So I'm just curious about, on the one hand, we've got, we seem to have in some ways a bit of a there's some rigidity to devotional service in terms like, there's a certain way you're supposed to do deity worship. There's a certain way you need to dress. There's kind of more rules, I would say, than most modern cultures would have that outlines for us how we should, live, act, and worship. But on the other hand, there's also this, this space for individuality. So how do we navigate the two, that we do follow the rules, but at the same time we do allow ourselves to express our individuality in our Krishna consciousness?
Yeah, I don't necessarily think that the organization of the rules are trying to kill individuality. Even Rupa Goswami, there's so many rules outlined. Sanatana Goswami, he went and wrote down Hari Bhakti Vilas so that all the rules would be there, all of them. But the amazing thing about devotional service, about bhakti yoga, about Krishna consciousness is you are supposed to follow the rules. And then at a certain point, some of the rules fall by the wayside. And not in a bad way, but you kind of like start to graduate from some of those rules. How do you know? Well, you'll know. I feel like you will know. Krishna doesn't really, when he wants to make things very concrete, he presents them. Usually it's not so like murky. Well, I don't know what he meant. Usually he arrives and makes his wishes very well known. And even like, we get the case of Shyamananda Pandit, right? Shyamananda, he was just minding his business, just trying to do the right thing, just trying to do his service. He didn't even ask for a new service. He wasn't asking for anything. He was just sweeping. And then he finds an anklet. And next thing you know, he's got his own line. And he was a humble devotee. His Gurudev was angry. You have a new name and new tilak and everything. Whoa, what are you doing? How have you strayed so far from the path? Right? So talk about difficult things to navigate, right? How do you navigate then when your spiritual master is telling you that you've now strayed? But Radharani herself told you this is what she wants. Luckily, it was also revealed not just to him, but also to others, other higher ranking Goswamis who could vouch for him. But also he tried to surrender. He said, okay, if you think I shouldn't have this tilak, this name, then okay. He tried to remove it, told his Guru Maharaj, you try and remove it. Nobody could remove it. Finally, others had to come. The Lord had to make his wishes known again. Usually many dreams occur. So how do you know when it's time to throw out all the rules? I don't know if that's a decision that we can make. Usually, our Vaishnavas usually start out following the rules. Vamsidas Babaji, he tried to follow the rules. And then, like they said, they tried to get him into married life. Some say short time, some say one day. But he tried. But Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would often remark that the goal is to become so enraptured that it's impossible to function. And sometimes that looks like something we can fathom, but sometimes it looks a little crazy. So I think that the more that we dive into our devotional service while following the rules, right? Like if you can find a way to follow the rules and still somehow be an individual, I feel like that gets Krishna's attention. Because the mind will say, oh, but that devotee over there is trying to keep me down. Or my superior over there is trying to keep me down, right? The mind will give us all this stuff. But can we circumvent it? Can we find ways around it? Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj would often give a challenge to be devotional, to be Krishna conscious, in spite of all the things, because of all the things, right? Can we show love that way? Can we say, Krishna, I love you, and then mean it while doing the things and following the rules? Because then I feel like that's when he begins trying to communicate with us. Those rules help us to prepare ourselves to hear him. So we want to hear all that Krishna has to say. At least I think we do. Like, that sounds very exciting in my mind. The real application of it, I might not be so happy with all the things that he has to say. But, you know, in my romanticized version, in the fairy tale love story that I have with my Radha Govinda, when I hear it, it'll be the most wonderful thing, with rainbows and everything, like glitter and sparkles everywhere, glimpses of the spiritual world. When really it might actually wind up just being like, Achyuta Gopi, chant your japa. Like, if you could just. But when he starts to make his wishes known, if we've prepped ourselves, just try the best you can, right? Which is what I love about this. Like Srila Prabhupada, he gave a whole bunch of rules. Krishna in Bhagavad Gita gives a whole bunch of rules. He gives Arjuna all of this information. It's like an information dump. It's like an overload almost. There's some chapters you're reading, or I wind up reading and I'm looking and I'm like, he's giving rule after rule after rule after rule after all of the things that you've got to do in order to make it. And then he says, but because you're my friend, you could also just do this. I mean, choice is up to you. I lay the paths out before you. I let you choose. You weigh the pros and cons, make a list, no problem. So I think that when we prepare ourselves, and Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj gives another analogy, you know, when he also speaks about how you get through that point of like following the rules and doing all the things and trying to, he says, you know, if somebody wanted to come to the temple, but they were an substance abuse victim, like, well, first you've got to go through a whole 12-step program and fix that. And then we've got to go through levels, right? So that we match the environment of where we're going. And so he says, you know, all of us here, we've got so much going on. We've got substance abuse. In this case, the substance is our own ego, right? We have an addiction to wanting to be it, the big boss. So we have to kind of work ourselves through this 12-step program of faith to really get to a point where we can have those conversations with the Supreme Person. Otherwise, you get there and the environment, the mood is all off, right? We're not equipped. They're not equipped. No one is ready for this. So I really like that answer that he gave about following rules and regulations and how it's almost like a 12-step program. Like, we have to reprogram our minds, recondition our conditioned souls to desire something else, to step away from the substance abuse. It's like, don't do it. Falling into the endless engagement in this place only makes you more confused and upset, and it only gets worse. And then we think, no, but I have to. So in this way, we can try and use all of these steps as a way to rehabilitate ourselves towards our spiritual constitutions. And then, of course, we've heard of the devotees when their bhakti takes off, spontaneous, loving devotion. When we've established our relationship with Krishna, with the deity of Madan Mohan. And then when we actively work towards upholding that relationship with Govinda, who accepts our devotional service and helps us refine it. When we think of refining things, anything valuable usually gets refined in a very violent manner. Like they burn it, or they beat it, or they like sharpen it against a stone, or they crush it out with a mortar and pestle, and they do all kinds of, or they like grind it with chandan. Like everything that's worth having, that's considered valuable, the word refine comes at a very violent price. Our faith is worth having. Now, I'm not saying that it's going to come at a crazy, violent, bloody price. No, but it is going to feel uncomfortable. Rehabilitation isn't always comfortable. In fact, you see the cautionary tales, right? Don't get into substance abuse because withdrawal is worse. And then this whole process of getting yourself rehabilitated. But this is us in the material world, trying to figure out, wait, I'm not supposed to be here. This is not the all in all. So those feelings that told me, like, I feel like I belong somewhere else, they were right. Not only were they right, but the place is so close. Okay, now, but I have to get myself close. So the rules are there for a reason, but often not forever. At a certain point, Krishna gets very personal, very loving, especially because he's Lord of reciprocation. The more we personalize it, the more he becomes personal. So as we follow the rules and regulations, talk to him. Have a conversation. Tell him about your day. Do it out loud if you dare. And as we continue to follow in the footsteps of all of these Vaishnavacharyas, we'll continue making ourselves more and more ready to hear him when he responds and says, oh, really? Tell me more. We're like, really? That was the most terrifying part of my day. But he will respond. And we won't feel stifled by rules forever. Did we lose you, Shardia? You still there?
No, I'm here. I'm listening very attentively. It was a wonderful answer. Thank you so much. I feel more inspired to, for now, diligently try and follow the rules. And as you said, at the same time, be an individual. And then, wait for Krishna's call.
And, amazingly, we kind of think like there are unlimited people serving in Goloka Vrindavan. Some people, it's their service just to bring cloves or find cloves. But they don't feel any less individual, nor do they feel unseen by the divine couple. In fact, they feel the most seen because their service is immortalized. We know that there's a gopi whose job it is to find cloves. So no matter how big or small we think our service is, no matter how we hope we followed the rules or we felt like, oh, but I'm just the person who does this. Not for Krishna. You are his person who does this. Even if you think, yeah, well, I'm just the person who like puts together the song sheets and staples them. No, you are Radha Krishna's person who puts together the papers and staples them, which is an amazing service. You are providing other Vaishnavas with all of the lyrics that they need in order to fully immerse themselves in the bhajans, glorifying this festival of sweetness. so that all of the devotees can sing to all of the other devotees who have gathered around from all over the planetary systems. Now, paper collator doesn't sound so bad. No matter what we think our service is, big or small, Krishna never gets tired of it. Him being Akila Rasamrita Murti, being able to satisfy everyone's different flavor, also means that my unlimited Lord never gets tired of my little tiny service. It's always important for him, whether I wash windows or I sing in a kirtan. If I've taken that service to heart, and I'm the person who washes windows, then what I should know is that Radharani has a moon tower attached to her house, made of crystal. The only purpose for this moon tower made of crystal is so that she can sit at the top and find out where Krishna is throughout the day. And all of the gopis, they'll tell her, oh, he's by Govardhan Hill now. And they'll explain the beauty of Krishna Balaram walking like young elephants along Govardhan Hill, playing, wrestling with their friends, as Govardhan gives them everything. Now imagine having to wash those windows. Those are the most important windows in all of Vrindavan. So no matter how big or small my service is, I'm not just the person who does one thing. I'm Govinda's person who does one thing. And make no mistake about it, he's been waiting for my one thing. If I can just be consistent, be dedicated, and give with devotion, Krishna will always be hungry for my one thing. Unless anybody else has any more questions. Jai Shri Radha Murlidhara ki jai, Shri Radha Govinda Dev ki jai, Shri Radha Govinda Julen Yatra Mahamahotsav ki jai, Kadashi Titi ki jai, Taigaur Premanande. All glories to our Vaishnavacharyas, all glories to all of you. Thank you so, so much. I can't wait till I see you all again next time. Really, truly, this actually helps me engage my mind. I find myself thinking about these lectures so much, sometimes with a little of anxiety. Sometimes it's like, oh, wait, Akadashi's already here? What's happening? But most of the time, it's really constantly trying to think, okay, what can this person's life teach us? Which is such a cool meditation. Thank you for putting that into my life, because I guarantee you it benefits me way more than I can say. It is devotional service in and of itself, thinking of these lectures at all. So thank you for listening to them. Thank you for being tolerant. Thank you for forgiving any and all mistakes that I probably have made during the course of this lecture. But thank you always for inviting me back once again and making sure that I have a place to take my mind the many, many times it tries to wander. So thank you. All of my gratitude to every single one of you. Thank you. I'll see you again next Ekadashi.